Okay, so recall the last time we learned a couple properties of exponents, so you don't need to write this down. You've already learned this, but we're going to review it because you're going to need it again today. When you have any base raised to the 0 power, the whole base goes away and the whole thing simplifies to be a 1. Correct, everybody? Yeah. When you multiply the same base and only the same base, then when you multiply the same base, you add your exponents. So notice we're taking it from two different bases or many different bases. It doesn't have to just be 2. And we're putting it in one base. And then you just add your exponents. And then we know when we divide the same base, it has to be the same base. Then you subtract your exponents. And these are the things to remember. You always take the top minus the bottom. So remember, if the bottom is negative, it'll be n minus negative m, right? That's where most people mess it up. We're not getting into today, though. So then also that starts out on top. So you take it to the top and do this, and then it's n minus m. Now, if you have a negative in your final answer, and we only take care of negative exponents in our final answer. If our final answer looks like this and we have a negative exponent, it's considered not simplified. So we fix that by taking our base, the entire base, and flipping it down over a fraction, and then it becomes positive. And then we remember that there's not just nothing left on top, there's a 1. So it looks like this, positive exponent. Everybody remember those? Okay, awesome. All right, 1-3, let's do number 1. This is an example of 1-3, so if you're not doing it, you're wasting your own homework not have to doing it. So we're doing it together. So notice, even though it looks like this stuff is grouped, it looks like that's connected and that's connected, multiplication is not connected. So you can reorder this in any order. Don't let it throw you off. So that's what I want to see is your work, reordering it. We have 3 times 4, just putting it in a more pretty order. So you're putting things that are alike by each other. We're putting our numbers by each other. Then let's put our m's together. So m to the 4th times m to the 3rd. Then our n's by each other. So n squared times n to the 3rd. And now we've reordered it. So it's the same thing in a different order. And now you simplify it in sections. Multiplication for numbers is still multiplication. 3 times 4 is 12. Cross them out because you've simplified them. When you multiply the same base, m and m, you add your exponents. So m to the 7th, very good. Now you simplified those. When you multiply the same base, you add your exponents, n and n. So 2 plus 3 is 5. Now there's nothing more we can do here. There's our final answer. Don't go back to old habits. Just do it the way I teach you and your life will be easier. Okay, let's do number 9 together. When you divide the same base, you subtract your exponents. But numbers, you just simplify the numbers. Do not say 4 minus 3. This is division. 4 and 3 are not, this is not properties of exponents. Do 4 and 3 have anything in common that we can divide out? No. So draw your line, put a 4 on top and a 3 on bottom, because nothing's simplified. Now we have an m on top and no other m's, so m's going to not simplify with anything. We have n divided by n, so that's really just a 1, correct? Anything divided by itself? Or we could have thought of it as 1 minus 1, which is n to the 0, which becomes a 1. You can think of it both ways. So looking at this, you'd say, does that simplify more? And the answer is no, right? There's no problems here, all is good. There's our final answer. Okay, next one, 2 and 3. They don't simplify. There's nothing we can divide out of 2 and 3 in common. So put the 2 on top, put the 3 on bottom. I do want to see your work writing it like this because you're more likely to get it right. Now focusing on the next piece here, u and u. When you divide the same base, you subtract your exponents. We always do the top minus the bottom. So write it on top, put a u, put your 2, put your minus sign, then look on bottom. It's a positive 3, correct everybody? Okay, let's just keep going here with our v's. We'll come back and simplify this in a second. 2 minus 4. So you put the v on top, you put the 2 minus 4. I want to see your work. You're more likely to get it right. So draw your line again. 2, 3, and then we have u to the 2 minus 3 is negative 1. 2 minus 4 is, good, v to the negative 2. So then you'd say, cool, there's my final answer as long as it's acceptable. Well, it's not. We have negative exponents. Only flip what has a negative exponent. The 2 is not connected, so only flip that. And then then it's going to be u to the positive 1 on bottom, right? Good. We're going to flip that down, b to the positive 2. So our final answer, I'm going to write it over here. 2 on top, that's it. We have a 3 and a u and a b squared. This would just be the pretty way of rewriting it. One last time. So that I have a nice, pretty final answer with no work. No, we're going to learn one more property. So, but right now we're just going to practice those basics again. So 1 through 3, but you guys are doing really good with them. The next property is not any harder, it's just a different property. So you're doing 1 through 3. This is all on, oh, sorry. This is worksheet 1-3. You're going to do 1 through 4 and 9 through 16. Only focus on these problems. The problems that are on the board. Do not do anything else. Ready, go. I'm going to come check them, hopefully. So this is the last property we have to learn. It's called a power to a power. So here's a couple of things on a hint on how you know if you're raising a power to a power. There's going to be parentheses. And then usually, there's usually only one base, and it's already raised to a power. Then there's parentheses, and you're raising it to another power. So this is what I call a power raised to another power. So when you raise a power to another power, you multiply the powers. So the song goes, when you multiply, you add. When you divide, then you subtract. Raise a power to a power, and you multiply. It's just multiply, yeah. So you can't, so everybody, do you see how, but here's the thing, people start to get this confused with, adding and like when they have two bases. So do you see how there's only one base x? Yeah. It's raised to a power, there's parentheses raised to another power. So we should be multiplying those. So raise a power to a power and you multiply. So 3 times 2 is 6. Everybody good with that? So we're about to get there. So looking at this one, raise this. So this is a base, raised to a power, raised to a power. So we multiply. So x to the negative 6, right? So we would draw a line, flip it over a fraction because that's not an acceptable final answer. X to the 6 and then 1's on top. So 1 over x to the 6, right? Don't write that as a negative. It's not negative. You flipped it. Okay. Next thing, notice. There's parentheses. So I say don't forget to distribute. So this is what we're looking at. 2 different bases here. So this is 2 to the first power. I strongly suggest you write in your first powers. This is x to the first power. Does everybody see? So we're raising powers. So we have 2 bases and they're raised to powers and then we're raising it to another power. So you've got to make sure you do both of them, raise a power to a power so you multiply the powers. So that's 2 to the, don't do the base times 2, it's not that, it's the exponent times 2. So that's 2 to the second power, does everybody see? And then also x to the 1 times 2, x to the second. So our final answer here is 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4, so 4x squared. So if there's multiple bases, you just have to make sure you raise all of them, each of the base to the exponent. No, 2, this isn't multiplication, but remember that 2 squared happens to be 2 times 2. So that's 4. So if it was 2 to the third, that's not 2 times 3. That's 2 times 2 times 2, right? Does that make sense? So don't make that mistake, because even my honors kids will do that sometimes. Okay, so everybody look at this one. This is 2 to the first power, x to the first. So we're raising powers to powers. So that's 2 to the negative 2 power, right? 1 times negative 2, and then x to the negative 2. So then you'd say to yourself, neither of those answers are acceptable if they have a negative exponent. So watch what happens here. It's kind of interesting. We flip the base over a fraction, 2 to the positive 2. We flip the base over a fraction, x to the positive 2. Left on top was a 1. On bottom we have 2 squared, which means 2 times 2, which is 4, right? That's not a negative, that's just nothing. And then x to the second power. Everybody see how I did that? Okay, looking right here, we have an x to the first power, a y to the third. We're raising those to another power. Raise a power to a power, you multiply. That's x squared, y to the 6, and we're done. So this next power is not hard necessarily, you just got to pay attention. Here we go, 22. Here's what people make the mistake of. They don't write in their ones, and then they mess up. So this is 2 to the first, and this is 22 on the 6-3, I believe, right? I mean, 1, is it on 1, 1? Oh, I didn't know. Sorry, go to 1, 1. I forgot that we switched over. Okay, so we have 2 to the first, x to the negative 4. We're raising both of those to a power. So we raise a power to a power, we multiply the powers. So that's 2 to the second power, x to the negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. So then you say, okay, I need to flip anything with a negative exponent over a fraction. Just that. So we have x to the positive 8 on bottom. Now you just say, okay, a number can simplify. 2 squared means 2 times 2, which is 4. So we have our 4 on top over x to the 8. So not too bad, right? Let's do another one, more advanced. Number 30. So don't let these throw you off, you guys. They're really not any more advanced. Think of it in sections. This is 2 to the first, x to the second, y to the third. We can't simplify anything inside our parentheses. So what are we doing? We're raising powers to a power. So we multiply the powers. So here we go. 2 to the 1 times 3 is 3. X to the 2 times 3 is 6. And then y to the 9. Now you'd say, do any of those simplify? 2 to the third means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Don't make the tragic mistake of doing 2 times 3. And then x to the 6, y to the 9th. And then we didn't need to fix anything. There's our final answer. We can't combine x and y, so we're done. Okay, getting a little bit more advanced. Do we have questions on that? Did I go too fast? We're all good? Okay. Number 31. Here's a little bit of a tricky one. Now here's why. We're always going to simplify in our parentheses first if possible. So everybody watch with me. Inside our parentheses here, do you see how we have multiple u's? Let's just focus on the inside and reorder this. Now, a lot of people think that this is negative u to the 0 is connected, but this is really negative 1 times u to the 0. So write in your negative 1s. Everybody do that now. So let's reorder the inside. We're just focusing on the inside here. So I have a negative 1. Oh, look, negative v. Isn't that really just negative 1 times v? So let's put all our numbers in the front. Negative 1 times negative 1. We're reordering this. So look, I reordered that and put it in a different order. Then we're putting like things by each other. So we have u to the 0, and we have a u to the 5th. And then we have a v. We're just focusing on the inside. So let's simplify in sections now. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. And then when you multiply the same base, you add. So won't that be 5? So we have u to the 5th. And then we have v to the 1st. And there's nothing more we can do. So now we're going to put our parentheses back on it, because we've simplified the inside. And then all of that is raised to the negative 5 power, right? Now this is 1 raised to the 1 power. Now we're doing raise a power to a power and you multiply the power. So let's rewrite what we have. 1 to the negative 5 power, u to the negative 5 times 5 is negative 25, right? And then v to the 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. So you'd say, that's my answer, but is it an acceptable final answer? No. Can't have negative exponents. Good, 1's on top. I like that you said that. This is u to the 25th. This is v to the 5th on bottom. And then left on top, I like that you say a 1. Otherwise, you'd be wrong. So 1 over 1 to the 5th, which 1 to the 5th means 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. So I don't even need to write that. And then we have our u to the 25, v to the 5th. This would be our final answer. So it looked really hard to begin with, but when we simplify from the inside out and just do it in sections, it's not bad. But it is hard overall. Okay, let's look at 32. Just making sure that we're good with some advanced ones. So notice there's a lot going on in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus inside our parentheses and simplify first. So let's ignore the 5 for a minute. Now let's reorder this. It's multiplication. So we have x to the negative 3. We're putting like things by each other times x to the 5th. You should be showing your work so that when you go home, you can re-look at it. Then we have y to the 5th times y to the negative 3. We're just focusing on the inside. So now you'd say to yourself, what property of exponent am I using? When you multiply the same base, you add. So we're going to have x to the negative 3 plus 5, which is positive 2. 2. I'm going to let you catch up right. Then right here, when you multiply, you add. So we also have y to the positive 2. We have simplified the inside completely. So now we'll throw our parentheses back on, and then it's raised to the 5th power. So now you'd say to yourself, what properties of exponents am I using? Raising powers to another power, we multiply the powers. So that's x to the 10th, y to the 10th, and we're done. So it really isn't bad if you just focus on it in sections and simplify in sections. Okay. All right, let's go for 34 here. So what you have to do is kind of decipher what's going on here. So let's focus in sections. So first of all, we have a lot going on in this problem, but it is all multiplication, correct? Notice the parentheses here. Notice the parentheses. So all of that stuff is raised to the 4th power, correct? So let's take care of that first. Anytime I see parentheses, I'm going to kind of focus in on that piece. So isn't this negative 1 times x times y? We just secretly, it's kind of like we secretly have a 1 in there, we're going to write it in. So now that's negative 1 to the positive 1 power, that's x to the 1 power, y to the 1 power. Right in your 1 powers, that always helps. So we're raising only this piece, all that stuff to the 4th power. So we're raising powers to power, so we multiply the power. So we have negative 1 to the 4th power, right? We have x to the 4th, and we have a y to the 4th. Okay, good. Now, questions up to there. Negative 1 to the 4th power, you've got to think of it like this. I want you to type it into your calculator like this. Negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. 4 times, right? Raised to the 4th. Positive 1. So this piece, okay, good. This piece simplified to be 1. So I'm going to rewrite it. We have 1 times x to the 4th times y to the 4th. Now that was just this section right here. So we can't forget, we also have x to the 3rd times y to the 4th times all that stuff. And we also have times, oh, this is not negative x squared, it's really negative 1 times x squared, right? You see I'm just rewriting it a little bit prettier for myself. And then we still have times y to the 5th. So now let's reorder it. You can do it. You can do it. So now just reorder it. 1 times negative 1, cross them out so you don't miss anything. Let's put all our x's in order. X to the 3rd, x to the 4th, and then x to the 2nd. And you cross them out so you don't miss anything. Then we have a y to the 4th. We have a y to the 4th. And then a y to the 5th. And it's really not bad from there. So now we just simplify it in sections using properties of exponents. When you look at it in sections, overall it's just a lot of steps, but they're really not hard steps. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. When you multiply the same base, you add your exponents. 3 plus 4 is 7, 8, 9. So x to the 9th, you've taken care of that. When you multiply, you add. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 5 is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we have y to the 13th power. So it did take us a lot of steps to get to our final answer, but you can do these times. I know you can do it. Good, I'm so glad you asked. So negative 1 is still raised to the positive 1 power. So we only flip things with negative exponents, not negative bases. I'm glad you asked, because I did not even think to say that, and I should have. Negative 1 will stay on top. Good. So if we ever had this, for example, negative 2x to the 3rd, that's an okay answer, because that's really negative 2 to the positive 1 power. So you wouldn't flip that. That's actually, I'm really glad you asked that. Okay, cool. So this one's a really hard one. Dang. I want to let you start working. So what I want you to do is finish worksheet 1-3 first. Check those ones off with me. Then go on to 1-1 to the more advanced ones, because those ones are way advanced. So start with 1-3. Make sure you can do the more basic ones. Yeah, but we have all the rest of the time, which is a long time. So what you're going to do first is do 1-3, check them off with me, and then you can move on to the advanced ones. That's always what we do is we look in our parentheses and see if we need to simplify first. Well, look, there's a lot we can simplify here. Now I want you to notice inside the parentheses we have this. Raised in parentheses raised to the 5th power, right? Don't let the negatives trick you in front. That's -1. So we have -1 to the 1st power. So we're going to raise this to the 5th and this to the 5th. So we have -1 to the 1 times 5, which is 5. And then n to the -5 times 5. Right? -25. Does everybody understand what I did?
Yeah.
You guys good?
Yep.
So then from there, you'd say, does this simplify? So type it in, -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 5 times. You get -1. So we have -1 times n to the -25. Now we just took care of all that, but we still have this -1 times n to the 3rd. So we have -1 times n to the 3rd. So now remember, it's always smart to reorder it. So we have -1 times -1. We have times n to the 3rd times n to the -25. -1 times -1 is +1. And then when you multiply, you add. So -25 plus 3. 25, 24, 23, 22. -22. Oops. So we have n times n to the -22. So that was all we've done so far is simplify the inside of our parentheses here. Now our last step, we're almost there, is we got to put our parentheses back on it because it was raised to the 2nd power, right?
Yeah.
So now you'd say, is this 1 to the 1st power? So raise a power to a power and you multiply. So we have 1 to the 22nd power, and then n to the, 22nd? What am I talking about? Perfect. So n, 1 to the 2nd power, right? And then we have n to the -44th power, right? 1 to the 1st power. Because this is base 1. Yeah, we're just now doing the parentheses. Raising powers to a power, so we multiply the powers. So now we've got this far. Is everybody caught up here mentally to that point? So then our last step is to say, does this simplify? Or is this an acceptable answer? Not quite. So we've got to take this, flip it. So we have n to the +44 on bottom. And then 1 squared is 1 times 1, which is just 1. So we have a 1 left on top and n to the 44th. That was super advanced. It was. Like, that would be even hard for some of my honor students to do in secondary 3 honors. You guys can do it. Look, we just did it, right? You can do it. Okay. But we wouldn't go that slow. Once they saw it slow, like that slow, they'd be able to do it. But it just what I'm saying is, it is easy to mess up. But now that we're going so slow, it should make a little bit of sense. Okay, how about this one? Maybe, do you think you could do this one? You got, okay, let's give it a try. Ready, go. This one's not bad. Look at it in sections. Look at it in sections. I'm going to push pause. Just for my video, I'm going to just talk this last one through, and then you guys are going to just finish up the worksheet. So looking at this as parentheses, this is x to the 1st. So we're raising powers to powers, so we multiply the powers. 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. And then we still have times x to the 0 times y to the 3rd, so I reorder it. X to the 0 times x to the 4th times y to the 3rd times y to the 12th. I just reordered it. When you multiply, you add. So we have x to the 4th. When you multiply, you add. So y to the 15th. So that's our final answer.
Wait, so it's not 1 there.
We have y, it should be 15. It's what you had, I thought.
How do you know?
You see why? We'll have to get 1.
Oh,
Oh, but that won't change my answer, right? Still have that. Just means you would have this. Yeah. You didn't. There was another way you could go about this. Like if you got the same answer, then we're good. Okay, finish the worksheet. Check them off. Hand it in. Do today.